and J. Those were the words that I scrawled into the margins of my notes while revising for my exams. I had just glanced at my laptop, and I was wondering why the F and J keys on my keyboard have little raised lines on them. More than 500 years ago, in the margins of another notebook, another man scribbled a random note to himself. Describe the tongue of the woodpecker. This man was Leonardo da Vinci, and he just happened to be curious about woodpeckers that day. The word Renaissance comes from the French word for rebirth. It marked a period from the 14th to the 17th century when Europe went through this cultural shift that was characterized by a renewed interest in the arts and the sciences. Disciplines didn't live in isolation. And from this era came the archetype of the Renaissance person, the embodiment of the notion that a man can do all things if he will. Someone with knowledge in many areas. Now, Leonardo da Vinci is the eponymous Renaissance man, the example I'm sure everyone here knows. He painted the Mona Lisa, but also studied hydraulic engineering, zoology, architecture, and everything in between. His theater set designs inspired what became early helicopters. He dissected human eyeballs to study the optics that were used to paint the Last Supper. His art inspired his science, and his science inspired his art. More recently, Bridget Mendler gained prominence as a Disney actress on Good Luck Charlie while making her own music. She also has a graduate degree from MIT in Media and Technology and a JD from Harvard Law School. Today, she is the CEO of a space startup. So Renaissance thinkers have always existed, and I truly believe that their interdisciplinarity is defined by their insatiable, relentless curiosity. The refusal to accept boundaries set by others and pursue your instincts. To ask, why can't I do this and also this? This is a picture of a cake that my mother got made for my 12th birthday. It is a swimming pool, and on it, a football, a stack of books, a paintbrush, a palette, and ghungroos, which are little metallic bells that Indian classical dancers wear on their feet. All the things I loved. And I had realized pretty early on that I did love so many things at once, and as a child, I was encouraged to pursue all of them. But growing up, exploring all these different things, made it very difficult for me to select what to study at university. I wanted to study architecture. Actually, maybe neuroscience. Economics sounded interesting. No. Literature was my calling. I wished I could study everything at once. And then I was told that spreading myself too thin made me unfocused or distracted. And I really felt the pressure of the linear standard path. Pick a discipline and a career at 17 and commit to it for the rest of your life. But eventually, the fear of uncertainty got to me, and I ended up picking the safest of my interests, material science and engineering. But here's the thing that surprised me. One of the first things that we learn in material science is that the microstructure of a material influences its properties, which then influence its performance. So in English, that means that the atoms and molecules that make a material will decide how strong or elastic it is, and then we can decide a good application for it. So we essentially break the world down into the tiniest layers and patterns. And this revealed to me that everything is so much more interconnected than we realize. Now I want you to keep this triangle in mind. Kathak is an Indian classical dance that I've practiced for the last 16 years since I was 5. And the language of this dance is through beats that we fit into repeating rhythms that then form the routine. So for example, if you consider 4 main beats, dha, dhin, dhin, dha, and if you have if you have a cycle of 16 beats, you would fit these 4 beats 4 times each to complete the cycle. And then you could carry on repeating the cycles to make your routine. However, if you had only 3 beats and if you had only 10 spaces to fill them in, you would need a completely different combination of numbers and spaces to fill these rhythms in. Any story, drama, or routine in Kathak can be broken down into these beats, which can then be reconstructed to form a completely new rhythm. So mathematics in dance had taught me the principles of that triangle that I would use many years later. Now there is another triangle that I'm sure we're all familiar with, the primary colors. Red, blue, and yellow can be mixed to form an infinite number of other colors. Now when I was making this painting, I did not use any black paint. So any areas that you see that look black are only brown and blue mixed together in different proportions. And this was because many years ago, my art teacher once told me, she forbade me from using black paint. Because she said that in nature, there is no true black color. And so using black paint makes art seem unnatural. No true black? What about my hair? Or the ink of an octopus? And so my art teacher, who had no scientific background, mind you, explained to me that all the colors that we see are reflected light. And so for something to be truly black, it must mean a complete absence of light. And even the darkest natural materials always reflect some amount of light. Science had found me in art yet again. And I learned that, mixing all these different colors, we could create new colors to get what we want. But when you go to an art gallery and look at a painting, you don't really see these individual colors at first. You see the whole image. And then when you look closer, you begin to see tiny little brushstrokes that the artist has deliberately placed in such a way that it adds meaning to this painting. And then you can begin to interpret this meaning. Many years later, in my first year of university, during a lab, I was reminded of this very concept. These beautiful pictures that you see are microscope images of an alloy. Now, each of these images contain the same two metals mixed together, lead and tin. And like paints, they're mixed together in different proportions. But even though they're the same two metals, maybe with 80% lead and 20% tin, or 60% lead and 40% tin, they look so different. And that's when I realized that to think like a material scientist is to think like an artist. It is to look at a picture and analyze, why do these colors look so different? What does that shape mean? Does this mean one alloy is stronger than the other? Can we change that? How? Even the language that we use in labs is one that I first learned as an artist. Words like composition, texture, contrast. So essentially, the same way that brushes or beats make up a rhythm of a dance routine, and an artist's choice of brushes and paint spots make up a painting, the arrangement of these tiny features determine a material's properties. So if all things are governed by the same principles, why do we pursue different things? Because I've learned that different disciplines all teach you different skills that all transfer over to all the other aspects of your life. Going back to that cake, being a competitive swimmer taught me to grit my teeth and take the plunge, even when I'm afraid to. Dancing on a stage under pressure has given me the muscle memory to be able to speak to you all today. Maybe the only thing that football taught me was to accept with grace the things that you are bad at, given what a terrible player I was. Now, I am by no means a master at any of these things. But modern Renaissance thinking isn't and shouldn't be about mastering everything. It is about letting yourself remain curious across eras, about being hungry for more. Because today we live in a completely different kind of Renaissance. Post-COVID, the world is more digital than ever. Information is abundant, answers are instant. Back then, Gutenberg's printing press democratized information. Today, AI gives us summaries of anything we want to know in seconds. In some ways, it feels harder to gain a deeper understanding of many fields today than it was back then, because there is simply so much to cover, and it is so easy to take the shortcut, because it takes effort to resist convenience. Some may even argue that it takes a certain level of privilege to take that effort, to expand your horizons. We have lectures, 9 to 5 jobs, dishes to do, children to look after, so many commitments. But I think that the essence of it lies in mindset, not in scale. And it starts with a simple step, being curious. Pay attention to the random questions that you think of in the shower, in your car, in the moments before you fall asleep, and look them up. Sit in on one of your flatmates' history lectures, even if you're a medicine student. If you really like a book or a movie, write a review of it. Challenge yourself to discover what your opinions are. Learn a language or a musical instrument, even if you think you aren't very good at it. Manchester has more than 20 museums. Visit one you like the sound of. And especially, resist the urge to ChatGPT every little thing. I promise you, every lens will make the world a much richer place. My parents always said, Shikshan kadihi vaya jat nahi, which from Marathi roughly translates to, no knowledge is ever wasted. So learn purely for the pleasure of learning. Abandon yourself to your curiosity. There are weird and wonderful outcomes to it. Now, I will always be a girl who tries to do everything, for better or for worse. And yes, it's messy and chaotic, and I'm still trying to figure out where my place in the world is. But I thrive in that rush of going full throttle at these passions that each teach me something new and discovering where they intersect. It keeps me up at night, knowing that I have a whole life ahead of me with so much to explore. All the greats began with curiosity, and from it emerged some of the world's finest innovation. You too are allowed to be many things. The F and J keys, the bumps on the F and J keys on a keyboard, help touch typists position their index fingers correctly so they can find the home row without looking at the keyboard. This improves their speed and accuracy. Now, there is no real reason for you to know this, and it probably won't help you file your taxes. But now you know.